Upon evidence of brilliance, Jacques Villeneuve's hype starts as 97 favourite has witnessed the fiery efforts of Michael Schumacher. The performance of the man in red has unnerved the predicted greatness of the Williams driver since losing ground in San Marino and Monaco. 4 championship points separate the two. Suddenly the season battle begins here, where the inexhaustible Schumacher and the insurmountable talents of Villeneuve start the championship race of rivals. On a very busy Memorial weekend, welcome to the 27th Spanish Grand Prix here in Barcelona at the Circuit de Catalunya in Spain. Barcelona is situated on the northeast corner of Spain in the province of Catalunya. Barcelona itself, sometimes known as a very salty port. Well, there we are, scenes looking at McLaren's David Coulthard's car, third quickest in practice. After a very, very difficult day on Saturday, track conditions did change, got cooler, and it's even cooler this afternoon. The Benetton team also big improvements. Jean Alesi and Gerhard Berger very much happier. I'm delighted to welcome Derek Bell, my colleague for the afternoon. And Derek, you've got some insights into what's happening at Benetton at the present time.
Well, I think the look on Commercial Director Flavio Briatore's face really tells the story. Benetton were world champions and constructors champions with Michael Schumacher in 1994 and 95 with 19 victories. Ross Brawn, technical director, and aerodynamicist Rory Byrne both defected to join Michael Schumacher at Ferrari. Since then, there have been no victories at Benetton. But after a very highly successful winter test program, the team were confident of the victory in 1997. But winter testing is in very cool conditions, and it's certainly not the same pressure as when you're racing, and they just haven't delivered the goods as yet. But lack of success over the past 2 seasons implies less income. Can Benetton afford the highly priced Renault Mechachrome engines and, of course, highly paid drivers for 1998? Inevitably, rumours abound, and the top one is that Audi, in fact, have an engine under development, and they also want to be in Formula One. Could they go to Benetton? But here in Barcelona, the lads are 4th and 6th, so maybe there's light at the end of the tunnel. John Green is talking with John Alesi.
Well, so far this season, it really hasn't been a typical Benetton year, and it certainly hasn't been a typical year for you, John Alesi. There's a lot of talk about the frustration within the team, and particularly your own frustration with the way the performance has gone. Can you explain what that is?
More than the frustration, is we want to find a solution to get out of this situation. So, you know, I'm an experienced driver. I don't have to give up, and I just have to help my team and my engineers to find a new things to be on a better position, and of course to have a better result.
They keep talking about the grip and getting heat into the tyres. Is that still the problem? Not necessarily here at Barcelona, which is a fast speed circuit, but generally overall at the other circuits, perhaps Canada coming up.
You know, I'm quite confident for the rest of the season at the moment, because the team understand what was really the problem on the car. So for here we don't have yet the modification, but from Canada we will have some new parts, and for sure it's going to be better.
And you're staying with Benetton?
Of course, no problem, no question about that. You know, even if people are talking, it's a lot of wrong information, of course, because especially at this level, when you have a contract, it's a contract, but more than a contract, there is a respect for everyone, and the respect it's to stay even if it's difficult. So I will do my best.
Thanks, Jonathan, but I have to think that Jean Alesi's comments refer to this year's contract. I understand that in Monaco, Alesi's brother was told that Jean Alesi's services will not be required in 98 by the Benetton team. Another team, we look down in the pits and just notice how much that wind has picked up in the last half hour. Another team that's been in trouble in spite of winning in Melbourne this year has been the McLaren team. So Jonathan Green went back down to speak to Mika Hakkinen. The Flying Finns got some points to tell us.
Mika, this is your 84th Grand Prix. No wins yet. Has it made you any less confident about the future and that win just around the corner?
I hate that question. But I hope this Grand Prix will be my first one then. I hope so.
But does it make you any less confident? Because as the time goes on, the contract up at the end of the year, do you think it's going to change any way, the way you're thinking about McLaren?
No, it doesn't change my confidence at all, but of course, longer it takes time, harder it is, just because I'm here to win. And more years you do in racing and you're not able chance to win, it is very hard. So I hope I'm going to win this weekend, I hope so.
Best of luck.
Thanks.
Well, there's nobody nicer than Mika Häkkinen. He deserves success. 84 Grand Prix, no wins. Teammate David Coulthard, on the other hand, he's won one race so far for the team. And David is anticipating being on the podium this afternoon. Now, that may not be quite the case because the grid positions both McLaren drivers achieved was done with a brand new Mercedes-Benz engine, which will not be in the back of those McLarens this afternoon. So, as things work down, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Stay with us. We'll be back for the starting grid for the Grand Prix of Spain in a moment. There we see there are some fans for Shinji Nakano in the Prost Honda. Now, Formula One thrives on rumours. That's the commodity. So if you listen up, you may get a few little messages in the upcoming sequence. Williams Renault, they've got non-works Renault Mega Chrome engines. They're going to be replaced in '99 by BMW, but Villeneuve in demand by big money teams. McLaren have got exclusive use of that Mercedes engine. 2 drivers whose contracts are up this year. German drivers apply here. No engine deal for Benetton so far. 2 expensive drivers. I think Benetton want youth and talent for the future. Arrows Yamaha, still no engine deal announced. That to me will be the key to the success of this team in the future. Jordan, of course, without an engine. Peugeot may give them one, may not, but Honda or Ford are my favourites. Ralf Schumacher contracted through '98. Fisichella an option for 1 year, possibly Benetton bound. Prost, Mugen, Honda, that's going to be Prost, Jordan. Very ambitious Alain Prost. Big money funding, looking for a big name driver. Is Damon Hill big enough? Well, one man who certainly has got his finger on the pulse of his wallet, of the rumour market, is Eddie Jordan, and he's talking to Jonathan Green.
Well, it is somewhat of a convoluted situation for '98. Perhaps, Eddie, you can make it a little bit clearer, because there's all sorts of combinations.
Well, I'm sure your in-house experts, John and Derek back in the studio, they have their own opinion. But the clear situation at the moment is, of course, that Prost has the Peugeot engine for '98. That leaves an opening for Jordan also to have the Peugeot engine. We're the only team with that opportunity. In our particular case, of course, there is opportunities with a number of other engines. We don't have to talk about them, but it's well documented at this stage, and your experts will no doubt tell the viewers. But other opportunities that occur is the Arrows, whether they stay with the Yamaha engine or whether they go with the Honda engine. That's another possibility. And of course, it's not still disclosed what engine Benetton are going to use next year. Taking it further into the driver combinations, a number of drivers' contracts are at an end. It's well documented again that Hill is in a position or being looked at by Prost and also by McLaren, whose both their 2 drivers' contracts are up, as is in fact Berger's and Alessi. So there's any amount of if you like, permutations, combinations that are possible for next year. It's very intriguing. It's a very busy time of the season.
Well, Eddie Jordan very carefully sidestepped the issue about what he's going to do with his team. But we understand that around the British Grand Prix in Silverstone, July, there will be an announcement made by the team on their '98 plans. Derek Bell, power circuit here in Barcelona. Take us around the lap.
2.9 mile circuit. Very, very fast straight. 200 miles an hour as they come down into turn 1, the Elf corner. A very quick little right and left, which leads us out into the Renault curves. A lot of understeer through this corner, sweeping through Seat, and then, of course, into Worth. Watch the exit right there. Very, very different. Quite a bump, lots of sand, and, of course, lots of people seem to go off there. They sweep their way down through Campster, down to Nissan. Short bit of overtaking could be done here, 190-mile-an-hour section. Into the hairpin at La Caixa. Very slow corner. They're coming out of there very, very slowly indeed, but Pickett putting the power on. Banker to Sabadell as they go through the right-hander, and then, of course, into Caixa, and then out onto the straight. Very, very important to get through this curve right here onto the straight, because they top speed of 200 miles an hour, and, of course, a great opportunity to overtake. High downforce and no drag is the perfect setup, but the circuit is very smooth, very abrasive, and they get a lot of understeer. Jacques Villeneuve is talking about race setup.
It's a very, very difficult track to get it right on the setup because you have a lot of long corners and you have corners from 80 k's to 250 Ks and up. So there's a lot of different type of speeds and corners. All the high-speed corners are right-handers with a lot of load, so you always end up eating your left front tire. So you have to watch that, but at the same time you need a car that's good in hairpins, mid-speed corner, and the track is full of small little ripples. So it's very difficult. And this year with the soft tires, you do 2 laps, and if you're not careful, your tires are completely destroyed. We've done a lot of testing here, so we have a good base setup, and that's a good thing, because now that Michael got in the lead in the championship, we have to get back to doing it right.
Well, Jacques Villeneuve and the Williams team certainly got the job done in qualifying. A very dominant performance from Villeneuve to snatch pole in the closing moments of that 1 hour of qualifying, and Frentzen, his teammate, alongside him on the grid. But let's have a look at the grid for this afternoon's Grand Prix here in Spain, and just have a see. Jacques Villeneuve, 7th pole career, 1:16.525. Frentzen alongside him, 1/4 of a second behind. Big battle for those two in that first corner. David Coulthard, very impressive indeed, in 3rd. Jean Alesi, equally so, in 4th. Mika Häkkinen, McLaren 2nd driver. Gerhard Berger, equally in Benetton, 5th and 6th. Michael Schumacher, the best he can do in the 4th row, 7th quickest. Good performance from Fisichella, though Jordan are disappointed, an 8th place. 9th, Ralf Schumacher, 2nd Jordan driver. And Johnny Herbert always smiles on the 5th row. Eddie Irvine, still 11th quickest. And Olivier Panis, 12th on the 6th row. Gianni Morbidelli replacing Nicola Larini, and Mika Salo with that new Ford ED5 engine. Great job from the Finn. Damon Hill on 15th, and Shinji Nakano. When was he last beside him in the grid? 8th row. Rubens Barrichello, disappointment for the Stewart team, and Jarno Trulli in the first of the Minardi Hearts. 10th row, Jos Verstappen alongside Yukio Katayama, who did get some more laps than usual this year. And final row, Pedro Diniz and Jan Magnussen, still really scratching his head and wondering, what have I got to do to go quickly in qualification? So these are the sighs all around the Barcelona circuit. So stay with us as we return back for the start of this year's Spanish Grand Prix. But there are 4 factors this afternoon that are going to be very important. First of all, the weather. It was wet this morning, but now the cloud base is lifted. There's going to be lots of pit stops. We anticipate at least 2/3 of the Goodyear runners are going to make up to 3 pit stops. And Alesi leaving that grid, he'll have to start at the back of the grid. So those pit stops, 3 for some, 2 for those in the middle or back. That's for Goodyear, 2 for the Bridgestone runners. Tire wear is the reason for these pit stops. The left front gets murdered around these long, constant radius corners. And finally, of course, it's a very physical circuit. So those drivers that haven't done their homework between Grand Prix could be struggling, heads falling off shoulders.
Well, very, very sad to see one of the Benettons leaving the back of the grid there after all we said about them just now, John. But he's now going to have to start at the back of the grid. Not quite sure who it is, but they're feeding their way down now. Of course, we did talk about the tremendous amount of stress on these drivers' necks, these very high speed, constant radius corners. There is a major concern with all the teams, and of course that is tyre wear on their left front tyre. And I think it's going to be the tyre people that really sort the problem out. Of course, Goodyear are right up there. The top 11 runners are on Goodyear tyres. They've obviously got something out of the bag since their early season, possible sort of tremors. And now the car is running, the tyres rather, are running terribly well. And of course, here the guys are actually swerving around to warm those tyres up. Oh, Villeneuve had a little locking up of brakes there, and it wasn't at very high speed. But of course, you have to get these carbon brakes right up to temperature for them all to work. And of course, they have to bed them in very hard with their left foot as they're coming down into the corners.
Derek, you think that everything would be okay, but Michael Schumacher is in fact not in the race car, but he's in the spare car because he had an hydraulic leak just before everybody left the pits. So for Michael Schumacher, we've seen also one of the 2 Benettons laid off, and it was Gerhard Berger, in fact, not Jean Alesi, who was late leaving the grid. For Michael Schumacher, Saturday was also a disappointment. Remember those brand new Step 2 engines that Ferrari hoped to race? Well, he had a big blow-up, and as a result of that blow-up, both Ferraris are running the engine they've run all this year. There we are on board with the man who's leading the World Championship by 4 points, 24 points to Jacques Villeneuve in 2nd place on 20 points. Now, at the start of this Grand Prix, as you see, this is the beginning of the straight. It's one of the longest straights in Formula One. As the cars now come into position From here, it's about 600 yards down to the 11th corner. So watch the front row of the grid, but watch Coulthard and John O'Lazy, both quick starters. They're going to try and get between the two Williams Renaults of Villeneuve and Frentzen, and breaking into that 11th corner is always very, very tight. So those behind are closing quickly on those at the front into that first corner. There's the gap where Gerhard Berger was. Watch the lights. They're going to come on in sequence. When they go out, this Spanish Grand Prix is underway. Well, I think we've got an aborted start because those flashing yellow lights indicate that we will not have this start take place. And the cars sitting on the grid, engines are revving, everybody is expecting the start to take place. The drivers are not looking at those flashing orange lights. They are still flashing away. This is not a normal start, and I don't know why everybody is sitting on the grid at maximum RPM. There, the wave flags. Come on, you guys. 21 of you, 22 if you count Berger at the back. This is not a start. Shut the engines down.
You can imagine, John, the adrenaline that was pumping around those bodies as they sat there. And of course now, it's all gone away again, and they're going to have to rebuild it up. It's the most awful feeling for a driver to have to go through that adrenaline pumping rush. I mean, the real tension. It's the first time for a long time we've had this, and here it is. Of course, they're going to come out on the grid again, and they'll go through the whole procedure again. It's a pity they won't let Berger back up to his rightful position on the grid.
Derek, talk about tunnel vision. I tell you, those guys are sitting there, their engines were peaking at 16,000 RPM, the clutches were being burned up, and they still didn't realize that those flashing lights indicated that there was a problem, that this start would not take place. Now what's going to happen is the whole procedure will begin again. Whatever caused the race director to bring this race, not even to start it, is something we have to wait and see, but there is action round the back of one of the two McLarens, and that looks like Mika Häkkinen's car is the car that's getting worked on, but we don't know whether it was that or not. So what we're going to do, while all this process is going to be built back up again, we're going to take the opportunity to slip off for a few messages. Stay with us, we'll be back in a minute. Very windy. Circuit de Catalunya here in Spain, as we now await the second start to the 27th running of the Spanish Grand Prix. Derek, 5 Grand Prix circuits have been used in the history of Spanish Grand Prix racing since the World Championship was formed in 1950. We have raced on some of them, and let's talk about them. My favourite, well, you tell me what your favourite is.
Well, my favourite's the one when I beat you, John, but that was the Montjuic Park, and that, I think everybody thinks that was the most gorgeous circuit. It was actually around the park, the Montjuic Park, right in the middle of Barcelona, in fact, sort of slightly above in the higher part of the city, and those lovely sweeps and turns through the park, and then back up that long right-hander uphill and the left up onto the straight. It was magnificent, wasn't it?
It certainly was. I mean, there are other circuits around Spain, Jarama, Jerez, these two in Barcelona. There's a third one somewhere I'll come to in a minute. We've just had news that the race, of course, now is going to be 64 laps because that one pace lap constituted a race lap. So we're down to 64 laps. The race, of course, was aborted, and the only reason we can imagine that that was aborted was that somebody must have stalled on the grid, and that was observed by one of the flag marshals. And now we see a further problem. There's on the front row of the grid, Jacques Villeneuve. That was one of the TV people pointing across, I think, to try and get everybody off the grid as quickly as possible, because everybody wants to get this year's Grand Prix in Spain started. And we see David Coulthard moving forward, Frentzen slow off the grid. Gerhard Berger, by the way, back into his 6th place in the grid. He is entitled to do that when there's a race aborted. Everybody once again starts this process, and you can imagine the tension that built up, because clearly when all those cars were sitting on the grid, not one of those drivers could clearly work out what was going on, and it was only by the intervention of the flag marshals at each start line down on the pit side waving their flags that some drivers got the message, and then eventually team members filed across the track. There we see the circuit. There are 3 segment points on the circuit. One is as they come out of that long Renault corner into the Repsol. The second is down before they break into La Chiaxa, and of course third is on start finish straight. That's where we get the segment times that we see on screen throughout the qualifying, and in fact sometimes we get those during the Grand Prix itself. Jacques Villeneuve leads Heinz Harald Frentzen They come down to the tricky part of the circuit. This is the circuit corner known as Worth. It's left, then an adverse camber. The cars roll down the hill as they then begin to turn right. There's a big gravel bed on the outside. That's the place where they get caught.
Yesterday they were really hitting that exit, weren't they, John? The outside curve there at Worth, and it really seemed to upset the balance of the car. Of course, when they came in really deep, they were having a mighty problem to get out, and that seemed to be where they were losing a lot of their time.
I think just in the effort to gain those last hundreds of seconds, everybody pushed very, very hard, but it did seem as well that if you got on the curve on the outside, that did destabilize the car a little bit. But here are three of the best corners on the circuit. These create the series known as Bank de Sabadell. Spain has got lots and lots of banks. Maybe not a lot of money in the banks, but lots of banks. And then the final one of these three right-hand corners leads on to start-finish straight, and a very, very important corner it is too.
It seems that it was
Ralf Schumacher stalled on the grid, and the penalty for the young German stalling, and remember he was actually second quickest this morning in warm-up, is that Ralf Schumacher has got to go to the back of the grid. That's the penalty a driver pays if he leads to an aborted start. So the field files back, takes up his position. Gerhard Berger there, you see, 6th place in spot, but you see directly behind Michael Schumacher should have been little baby brother Ralf Schumacher, but because of that stall, he is going to go to the back of the grid. And for the Jordan team, that's great disappointment indeed. Eddie Jordan, coy about just talking about his own team's plans for 98, has got Ralf Schumacher locked up in a contract, and believe me, he wants to keep him. So let's listen as the engine revs build to the start of this year's Grand Prix. Great start by Jacques Villeneuve, but look down the outside of McLaren. Mika Häkkinen, we think, comes down and look at that great start. McLaren, Mika Häkkinen and Villeneuve side by side as they go through Elf. But and Villeneuve has taken the lead back, but Michael Schumacher, blinding start from the German, up to 3rd place.
Absolutely brilliant start by Michael. In fact, Irvine had a good start, but he got really thwarted and had to drop right back 4 abreast as they come down into here. Remember, very, very dirty on the inside, and round the outside goes one of the Tyrrells. One of them is driving by Salo there.
Mika Salo, good start as well, but blinding start. And look, Michael Schumacher now up into 2nd place. So the world champion, leader of this year's championship, is putting all the pressure and heat on Jacques Villeneuve, the pole sitter, the man who should be leading this championship. This is a battle not just for the lead of this Grand Prix, this is a battle for the lead of the Drivers' World Championship.
And remember that in just the last race, Schumacher actually lapped Jacques Villeneuve during the Monaco Grand Prix on his way to that classic victory. So it's really pretty exciting to watch Schumacher here. All weekend, Schumacher said, we haven't got a chance, we haven't got a chance. He qualifies 7th, all leading up to it. There's no way we're going to do well here. All right, I know it's only the first lap, but Schumacher's certainly showing his colours. And let's not forget, he's actually in his spare car. And the spare car didn't run that well yesterday in qualifying, in my opinion.
And Heinz-Harald Frentzen has been the big loser. We believe he's all the way down in 6th place. All that hard work on Saturday to get onto the front row of the grid. He's behind Ferraris, McLarens and Benetton.
Of course, that's the problem with this sort of a circuit, John, is if you, with these long constant radius corners, if you actually get a little bit offline because you're in traffic as you are on the first couple of laps, it can actually hold you up just that bit and you don't have the momentum onto the straight. And the other guys, just like slingshotting in IndyCar racing, and we saw in the race yesterday, where the guys just come flying by with the momentum and take that lead.
Well, our lead is Jacques Villeneuve, but Michael Schumacher is staying glued to the back of the Williams Renault. David Coulthard, a fine 3rd place, confirming that 3rd place position on the grid. John Alesi 4th, that was his grid position. Mika Häkkinen 5th, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the big loser, down in 6th. Little Ralf Schumacher, of course, he started in the back row of the grid, but already is climbing up through those back markers. We would expect that, but obviously the disappointment of stalling your engine and going to the back. Let's look at the start again and watch how Villeneuve goes up. Look at that dive. David Coulthard from left to right, almost into pit lane. Streams on, gets ahead of Villeneuve, but Villeneuve goes eyeball to eyeball around the outside in Elf Corner. 3rd place there, Michael Schumacher. 4th place, Jean Alesi. Great battle, and luckily no contact that we could see. One man also who was superb the Finn, Mikasalo, but of course, now that the race is beginning to stabilise, he's going to drop further back. But this battle for the lead looks very tight indeed. David Coulthard, in fact, is drawing himself up to the back of Michael Schumacher, who's really trying to hold on to the back of the Williams, but it's in these very long, constant radius corners that the Williams car has got such an advantage.
Well, the Williams, of course, as we've said before, it really has the best of both worlds. It has very little downforce combined with very little drag, and of course it just flies down the straightaways, and that's what you need. The Ferrari, unfortunately, has a lot of drag because they have to have a lot of downforce to make the car work, and that's what eventually will tell on the tyres. But Michael is, you can see, raggedly holding on there. Just got to keep this man in sight in front. Michael just wants to get some points here. This is the one race that he didn't think they could get anything at all, certainly not a victory. So he's just going to hang in there and get a good position, get some points. And we're going to be interested to see just how this race progresses. Long way to go, 3 stops.
Well, we're just going to have a quick look at the start of this Grand Prix again, because just watch this man, the third car on the grid, David Coulthard. He is going to go from the left-hand side of the track where he is starting. He will dive between Villeneuve and Frentzen, who has a slow start. Lazy, Hackett and Berger are all going to swamp Heinz Harald Frentzen. So this is the cars as they'll be back with the live action. Michael Schumacher at his most dangerous when he says, I don't think I've got too much chance of winning here this afternoon. Never discount what this German driver is capable of. 2 world championships, superb win 2 weeks ago in Monaco in the rain. Jacques Villeneuve, well, he said, look, he just got it wrong. 2 races now he's had problems, in Imola and in Monte Carlo. He needs to win here to get his championship hopes back on level power. And if they should finish first and second, then they would both end up with 30 points, equal in the World Championship.
Obviously, Schumacher and Villeneuve are really settling down now. It's the first time in race conditions they've been able to run at a decent pace. They're going to be conserving those tyres and are very aware of the penalties they pay if they just push that car too much.
Just watch David Coulthard there. You see how he splits Villeneuve. Villeneuve almost, oh, that was rude, Jacques Villeneuve. Now that would be something I would bring you in after the race for and give you a slap in the wrists.
But look
how brave Schumacher is down the inside, takes that third place away from Jean Alesi. Almost contact again between Villeneuve and Coulthard. They're mates. Those 2 guys live in Monte Carlo. They go out for dinner together. I wonder will they be having dinner this week?
As long as they both finish, they will, John.
Villeneuve leads, Schumacher second, Coulthard third, Alesi 4, Hakkinen 5, Frentzen 6. We're going to go away for a minute, come back and join this action in Spain. We're on the 6th lap of 65, and the order is still the same. Villeneuve leads from Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard in third, Alesi 4th, Mika Hakkinen 5th, and Heinz Harald Frentzen still all the way down in 6th place. But besides these top 6, there's a much better battle going on down for 10th place with Mikasalo, Damon Hill, Eddie Irvine and Olivier Panis clawing over each other like you can't believe. Now, we're talking about a 3-stop Grand Prix. If that is going to be the strategy of these cars we see on screen right now, well, we anticipate cars beginning to make those stops around about lap 14, lap 15, and that's little more than 8 laps from now.
Obviously, the one concern these drivers are having, and we heard Jacques Villeneuve talk about the start here, of course, is this wear on the left front tyre. He obviously doesn't look too concerned about it right now as he's gradually pulling away from Schumacher. And of course, you're now seeing the McLaren Mercedes, albeit with its regular race engine in, he's actually getting all over the back of Michael. The Schumacher is obviously having a little bit of problems there, but it's a long way to go. And of course, we just don't know really what strategy Michael's on or anybody's on at this present time. We'll have to just wait and see how it pans out in a few laps.
Well, one thing is very clear, that David Coulthard, now that we're on the 7th lap, settling down, Michael Schumacher has lost sight of Jacques Villeneuve. Villeneuve easing away, but Coulthard closes up to the German. And remember, it was David Coulthard that was the quickest man here down the straight in qualifying, 312 kilometers per hour. About 5-6 kilometers per hour quicker than Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. And that was the prime race car. Now Schumacher, of course, in the spare car. That car may not be just quite as good as the car that Schumacher preferred to use, but David Coulthard, not much to do on this part of the circuit, closes down as they come into Worth Corner. In fact, this is La Chiaxa. Accelerate up the hill into Banca de Sabadell. It's here he has got to get himself into position, because after the third of these 3 right-hand corners, you're onto the straight. So get your position right. Keep an eye on Schumacher. Now begin your work. You may have a chance to get past at the end of the straight, but too much understeer coming on, Derek.
Here, really picking it up as he comes out here. Fifth gear as he goes into the Renault curve. And comes out of there up 180 miles an hour in 6 gears. They streak out of the Renault curves up into Repsol. They have to be so cautious. They mustn't load up that left front tire too much as they turn in. They must get the power on nice and early so they can balance the car. They daren't go in sort of pushing, diving in too late. And that's what David has to be very careful about here. Is up behind Schumacher as he doesn't go in the corner too deep behind him, desperate to catch him up, but in fact also scrubbing off his tires, sweeping to the Worth corner there. You see them right out on that curve as they come out, and then of course sweeping to the right-hander following it, and then down this short straight, the Nissan straight, possible to overtake as they sweep down here. Coulthard's having a little look but not doing much about it, then pulling a 3.7 G under braking as they cover. That's quite a considerable amount. Very, very wearing on their necks, remember. And of course here we go through Banca de Sabadell, Kayaksa, and out onto the pit straight. They're coming any second now, and a very, very vital corner to be really neat and tidy as they sweep through here out onto the straight. Mustn't scrub off speed going in.
Derek, it's very clear that Michael Schumacher is really holding up the 4 cars that are behind. You now see a train. In fact, beyond Frentzen, that group of 4 cars, now 5 cars, because Ralf Schumacher has joined in. So Michael Schumacher here in 2nd place. No longer is it got any sight of Jacques Villeneuve, but behind him David Coulthard is all over the back of the Ferrari. Jean Alesi now looking to find a way to take advantage of the difficulty Coulthard's in, and that's allowing Heinz-Harald, or Mika Häkkinen, and then Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Frentzen strangely out of it, Derek, at this point in the race. Now, would Williams, for example, have opted to do something different with Villeneuve and Frentzen in terms of stops? Could it be Gianni Morbidelli in his first Grand Prix of the year, 10 seconds, jump start penalty? That'll mean come in, stop, go back out again. Tough race for the young Italian. First race for the Sauber team.
Well, the one thing you just said there about Williams, John, after they're completely stuck into running on those slick tires in the rain at Monaco, and here they are, they might go completely crazy and opt for one car to go for 2 stops and the other for 3. It wouldn't be a silly idea at all, and running 2 cars, that's the sort of thing I would do. I'd always try and consider, if possible, running a different setup on both, so you had 2 options just in case conditions changed. And who knows, you see, when you get caught up in a little group like this, the guy in front, in Michael Schumacher's case, he's not actually he's driving at his limit. The other guys actually aren't pushing their cars too much because they're sort of semi-cruising behind, if that's the right way. And of course they're not scrubbing off the tyre wear as they were. So of course if somebody like Frentzen behind was taking it very, very easy, he could well go through with a 2-stop situation. Very clever thing to do, maybe. We will see.
Derek, one thing that's very important, I think, to remember about this Grand Prix is that the difference in terms of race time between 2 stops and 3 stops is virtually nothing. In fact, if you do the arithmetic, as all the teams will do, 2 stops, 3 stops, both cars would finish identically.
Oh, look at that. Michael really had a moment going into that corner. He really obviously had a major lift-off in the middle of the corner. Remember, we mentioned, of course, just now that the Schumacher had their Step 2 engine in yesterday for qualifying, but in fact there was the most monumental blow-up about the 1/3 of the way into the session when his Step 2 engine stepped out of line and just fell apart. It was like a hand grenade. Poor fellow behind, I think it was one of the Jordans, he had to take really, really major evasive action. So in fact, everybody is actually running their basic race engines, apart from, in fact, Tyrrell, who are running their new ED5 engine. This actually gives them another 500 revs, and they run their engines at 15,000 revs. Remember, this is a sort of semi-works Ford engine. So Tyrrell are running that, and of course Salu did a very good job yesterday in qualifying, 14th place, and is running a good race now, mixing it with obviously Eddie Irvine and Damon Hill and Panis back there for 10th place. Oh, good move here by, oh no, he wouldn't let him through. Michael would not let Coulthard through. Great piece of driving by Michael Schumacher, I must admit.
Derek, I must say that both drivers did a good job because contact could have so easily occurred. Coulthard was at about 80% alongside Michael Schumacher. You're going to be over 100% to get past, and the German is not going to concede. Clearly he's in problems. We saw from that little graphic on screen that on the last lap, Michael Schumacher was 3 seconds a lap slower than race leader Villeneuve. You can see Villeneuve just at the top of the screen. He's gone, he's out of sight. But this battle for second place between the German, the Scotsman, the Frenchman, the Finn and the German. There's the stop-go for poor Gianni Morbidelli, former Ferrari test driver, now Sauber Petronas Grand Prix driver. David Coulthard had a sniff. He basically did the work he had to do by coming onto that last corner on the start-finish straight correctly, but just didn't quite have the position on track. Let's look again and see as it pulls out now, gets alongside Michael Schumacher, but not so far sufficiently alongside. What Schumacher's doing is counter across the front. Derek, what do you reckon to that?
Brilliant piece of manoeuvre. I mean, David, I think, did incredibly well. He didn't bounce off the curb, which he could have so easily done. Absolutely superb job not to make contact with Michael Schumacher. Schumacher saying, no, boy, I've got my wheels in front, and that's what I'm staying there. He's looking like he might have another go here. No, Michael makes a move one way. Schumacher's Coulthard says, I don't think I'm going to have a go here. But just watch Alesi. Remember, Alesi could capitalise on this situation, because if these two do have a little coming together, do get a bit out of shape, well, of course, Alesi's going to be there to zip through with a bit more momentum. And you saw Alesi having a look at Coulthard half a lap ago. But Schumacher is certainly working his way around this circuit. The sad thing is for Coulthard is losing a lot of ground to the race leader. Look at this, right up the back of the Ferrari going into that corner. Michael Schumacher is having a difficult time, but of course the others, they've got to get by, and that's not easy. There we go, great shot there through the worst corner. You just get an idea of the way the camber drops, the way the cars drop out to the right-hand side there. They've got to be so careful with that bad camber they don't get a hooker wheel over the edge and disappear off into the sand.
Well, this battle is getting more intense, but believe me, you're not going to miss anything. We're going to take a quick break, so stay with us. Join us back with the action here in Barcelona. Will Coulthard get past Michael Schumacher? Find out in a minute. Welcome back. David Coulthard got the job done at the part of track he tried 3 laps ago. Derek, that was a great move from the Scot.
It was a great move. Michael didn't come out onto the straight quite as quick as he should have. Coulthard stayed right behind him, dragged, slipstreamed off him, whatever you want to call it, down the straight, pulled out and went by. Now watch Alesi. He's going to be all over the back of Schumacher, and he doesn't take any prisoners at all when he goes by. So it's getting very interesting. Of course, at the back of this, you've got Frentzen, and he's been caught by Johnny Herbert. So it's all getting a bit exciting right here. Look at Alesi as they come out of that turn, right up behind Michael Schumacher. Now Coulthard is streaming away, but of course he is 16 seconds or so behind after 13 laps, which isn't too good.
Well, let's have a look at the field. Villeneuve clearly gone now. David Coulthard second. Schumacher under pressure from Alesi in third. Alesi fourth. Hakkinen fifth. Frentzen sixth. Johnny Herbert seventh. Berger in eighth. Giancarlo Fisichella ninth. And Damon Hill first of the Bridgestone runners in 10th place. Ralf Schumacher fans, well, sadly Ralph's been into the pits. Difficult afternoon's work. He stalled on the grid, had to start at the back of the field, made a few places, but is back into the pits, and that looks like the end of the afternoon for the young German. Michael Schumacher into the pits. This is the first of this lap 14, as we predicted. David Coulthard in as well. Lap 14, 3 stops for McLaren, 3 stops for Schumacher.
And also for Benetton. Benetton are ready, so they're ready for Alesi. One assumes he'll be in straight away. And then, of course, watch just how quick these pit stops are. That'll make all the difference. Coulthard went by, Schumacher follows him out. So, my goodness, these are going to be really important. The race could well be sorted out in the pits.
Second place, Jean Alesi. Third place, Mika Hakkinen. Fourth place, Hans-Harald Frentzen. The Williams team are now preparing. I anticipate that it will be Villeneuve. Ferrari preparing for Irvine. And Alesi and Gerhard Berger yet to come in. Mika Hakkinen locks her up as he comes down into that very tight left-hand Seat corner. Then all the way down into Worth. Just watch Mika Hakkinen gets in, look at the front, the understeer. That's the story of the race. Not this time the left front, but the right front. So the tyres getting murdered this afternoon in Spain.
It's amazing because the surface is undulating, yet it is very, very abrasive, and that is why we think the Benettons and the McLarens are working so well. They didn't seem to get grip at Monaco. They haven't got much grip at many of the circuits this year. They need abrasive circuits to get these tyres up to temperature, and that is exactly what's happening here. You heard Alesi say, well, we've got something that we'll be able to sort out for later in the season. We'll have it for Canada. There he goes. There goes Hakkinen diving for the pits as well. Boy, they come in that pits quickly, don't they? My goodness gracious me. I bet he didn't have his indicator out.
Derek, that's where the race will be won and lost this afternoon, though I have to say the lead that Jacques Villeneuve has is so significant. Now let's watch what the McLaren boys will do for Mika Häkkinen on this first service. 5.7 seconds, could have been fractionally quicker, but nonetheless, that's a small fuel load that was put on board for Häkkinen.
And he
a
had
little bit longer than it took to put the wheels, tyres back on. This battle, well, Jean Alesi now all on his own in second place. He will use this opportunity to run free and run clean, try to mitigate the advantage that Jacques Villeneuve in the lead has presently got.
Yeah, that's probably the highest place we've seen John Alesi this season. He's actually doing a very, very nice job. He was very sensible. Look, he goes for the work over against the curbs there, comes out on it. Here we go. This is another move, another shot of David Coulthard going past Michael Schumacher.
Well, Michael Schumacher made the Ferrari certainly very wide, but the young Scot Coulthard, believe me, is made of stern stuff. That was a good pass. It was made at the right part of the track before the corner. Gives Coulthard the chance to come back, take his line, and sweep into second place. Of course, he's been into the pits, fresh rubber, as has Gerhard Berger, as has Michael Schumacher. We wait to see Alesi still in second place, but staying out on track. Now, Jean Alesi, we remember, in Melbourne, ran out of fuel because his radio went down. He didn't see the pit signal telling him what to do. In the meantime, race leader serene in his lead, and as anticipated, Frentzen comes in first. In fact, surprised me, thought he might have been doing a two-stop race. Frentzen clearly not able to maintain or run at the pace of teammate. Left tyre on Schumacher, left tyre on Frentzen, also highly worn. Two drivers that tend to like very, very sharp turning cars. Villeneuve maybe more able to adapt the car to be easy on the tyre on a circuit that is known to kill tyres.
It'll be very interesting to see just when Alesi comes in. Of course, immediately one says, oh, maybe he's going for two-stop strategy. But of course, it's still early days. Villeneuve hasn't been in yet either, so we'll have to just see whether Alesi comes in later than projected. But of course, as you said, there isn't really that much advantage at the end of the day for a two or a three stop. But Alesi, I'm surprised, has stayed up. But remember, as I mentioned earlier, he was sitting there behind a group that were dicing, and therefore he actually had that opportunity to perhaps save his tyres a little bit while the guys in front were dicing around. Villeneuve, however, has been charging on progressively, pulling away all the time.
I anticipate that Williams have done what I would call the Hill strategy. That was what Hill did in Imola last year. They've given him enough fuel to do a two-stopper, but if he got into traffic, if he didn't get the lead of this Grand Prix, they could have brought him in and gone into a three-strategy race. But now Villeneuve, I believe, will only go for two. There's the positions, 20 seconds. That's the advantage that Villeneuve enjoys over Jean Alesi. Giancarlo Fisichella still not in the pits. Oh, Damon Hill, another retirement. What is the world champion going to do? 6 starts, in fact 5 starts in 6 Grand Prix, 6 retirements, and I have to think that Damon Hill's, I would say, patience has gone beyond the point of being tried. But race leader Villeneuve, that 20-second advantage. Damon Hill remembered, oh, put the steering wheel back on. That would be another finable offence if the world champion had forgotten.
Remember, poor Damon, he's the only driver to have not finished a Grand Prix this year. That's pretty galling for somebody that was world champion last year and has such ability to win races, championships, etc. I'm sure there'll be a lot of things talked about when he gets back to the pits in that Arrows Yamaha team. Very, very disappointing. Villeneuve still hasn't come in, so maybe you're absolutely right. Damon certainly can't go back for his training car. He just doesn't want to have to talk to anybody. I think he's really peeved, upset, not too much excitement. As he walks through the Renault's pit, they must be going, poor old Damon, what an awful run for him. But, well, you know, there weren't too many options open for him, in my opinion. But I think I could well have gone to Jordan if I was Damon. I just wouldn't have gone to Arrows Yamaha.
Well, I think Eddie Jordan maybe might feel the same about that, but Damon at the time felt that Walkinshaw did offer the best opportunities for the longer term. Look at the fastest laps and last laps. So Jacques Villeneuve lapping just over a second quicker as we see Fisichella finally into the pits. So the young Italian teammate to Ralf Schumacher makes the first of what may be about 2 and a bit stops. In the meantime, Villeneuve still on track, still no sign of him wanting to come in, and has got no need, Derek, for that 20-second cushion. There really is no need, but what the Williams team must do is not get complacent. David Coulthard is the only runner in the top 4 who has made a pit stop. Coulthard can run very quickly on fresh tyres. He needs to, the team must watch what McLaren are doing, because there is the problem for Damon Hill. That was a gusher, and Damon has to pull across the track. Fortunately, it doesn't appear to be any liquid going down, Derek, but disappointment for Damon, disappointment for the Arrows team and for Yamaha. What have they got to do? So in the pit lane, Ferrari and Williams waiting for Irvine and Villeneuve. 19 laps complete. This is the 20th lap of 65, and Villeneuve may well be looking to come in around lap 21, 22. That would be about the earliest window for the two-stop race.
And Alesi's still pulling ahead at about a second a lap. He's lapping 3/4 of a second quicker on his best lap than Alesi's done. Is Irvine in? He's been having a pretty torrid time back in sort of midfield, 9th, 10th place. I thought actually after his start he'd have an excellent race. Brand sticker tyres there as he goes out up to his little 55-mile-an-hour limit. Then he can really let it go.
Well, at the minute we're still watching Jacques Villeneuve, and along with Jean Alesi, these two are the only two that have not yet pitted. So Villeneuve looks like he's preparing to dive, and the camera just cuts away back to David Coulthard, who will, we believe, in fact, now get into second place, because we believe that Jacques Villeneuve, there he is in the pits. First stop, lap 21.
Remember, Coulthard was actually 32 seconds behind, so Villeneuve could well come out in the lead of this. .3 seconds, and the reason that pit stop took a little bit longer than we've seen from other teams is that this is a two-stop strategy for Jacques Villeneuve. They had to put that little bit more fuel in. David Coulthard comes round. Still, he will be in third place because Villeneuve will have been out. Alesi leads. It will be Villeneuve and David Coulthard. So Coulthard did not make up sufficient time. Top speed, you see, 316. For both the McLarens, that is quicker than anybody did during the weekend of qualifying, or even this morning for the morning warm-up. Those McLarens are flying. That Mercedes-Benz engine, not even the latest engine that they use for qualifying, certainly has got lots and lots of power. You realise that is in fact 198 miles an hour they're pulling down the straight, if one can take it as being true, which, as you say, a little bit quicker than they went in qualifying. Makes you wonder, but maybe you see for the race they've taken a little bit of downforce off, so they get that extra top speed on the straight, give them that opportunity to zip by if they have to. And we saw David make that fine overtaking move on Schumacher, and that could have been some of the benefit, is the fact the streamlining and the aerodynamic benefit the car had at that point. Because normally they've had to run a tremendous amount of downforce to get the traction, to get the grip, to get the tyre temperatures up. In goes Berg. Oh, that's Alesi into the pits.
Jean Alesi, the race leader, comes in for one of two pit stops this afternoon. Tyre wear is the reason why we're seeing so many stops here. Look at that. That's not tyre wear, that is brake wear. That's the dust from those carbon fibre pads and discs.
Good pit stop, John.
Jacques Villeneuve regains the lead of this Grand Prix. David Coulthard is second. There is race leader. Interesting, looking at the pit stops, Villeneuve's stop was 26.7. Now he's on a two-stopper. For McLaren, they were doing 23.5. That's why they're doing three stops. Less fuel going in, less time standing in the pits. But the two-stop race, if you can lead, will be sufficient. And as long as Jacques Villeneuve has a trouble-free afternoon, well, we have to think this is the man who will stand on the winner's podium. We're going to take another little break. We'll be back in a minute to confirm race leader Jacques Villeneuve is still leading. Welcome back to Spain as we watch Pedro Diniz in for his first two stops this afternoon. The Bridgestone runners, interestingly, have been able to go slightly further into the 65-lap race. We're on lap 23. Jacques Villeneuve leads, David Coulthard second, Olivier Panis still not stopped in third place, Mika Häkkinen fourth. Johnny Herbert, we think that is, as Morbidelli in a second time. Jean Alesi in fifth, Michael Schumacher rounds out the top six. So as everybody sorts themselves out, Jacques Villeneuve goes on to lap 24.
The only person not to pitted yet is Pani in the Prost, of course, on Bridgestone tyres. He's obviously going for two-stop strategy. I can't imagine he's going for one stop, but he, in fact, of course, is lying in third place. just behind David Coulthard and ahead of Jean Alesi.
And Jacques Villeneuve, his lead over David Coulthard in third at second place is only 3.4 seconds. So Derek, the advantage that McLaren have been trying to play out with 3 stops, in other words, running faster all the time with less fuel load, means that Coulthard is in sight of race leader Jacques Villeneuve. Now, whether that will remain once everybody gets further into their second runs, we wait to see.
Well, in fact, John, I have to interrupt you there. In fact, the gap was 6.7 3 or 4 laps ago, so they're actually getting a lot closer, and you're absolutely right. He's catching up at hand over fist on Villeneuve. But of course, Jacques is out there on fresh tyres now, and you'd have thought he'd have got away, but we're not actually positive about this, but that was what I was led to believe. However, of course, Villeneuve may well be out on some tyres that perhaps aren't just as nice as he'd like to have them, and we've had this before. Not every set of tyres is identical, and sometimes you have a fine setup and sometimes you don't.
Well, very often what happens, the tyres are the same make of tyres, same construction, same compound, but there just can be a variation. Though I think this time Goodyear have brought this revised construction with the new compounds. It did cause Williams a little bit of problems initially. It seemed to help Benetton and McLaren significantly. But of course, you just might get a set that doesn't quite feel as good. And everything about being a Grand Prix driver is based on feel. How you can drive the car, the point that you open the throttle, the point that you turn into a corner is all based on what your hands, your feet, and the seat of your pants tells you. And if you think something is slightly different to a previous set of tyres, then you've got to make the adjustment. And remember now, Derek, these cars do not have adjustable roll bars in them. That is prohibited by the regulations.
There's a very good dice going on there, John, between Gerhard Berger and Eddie Irvine. Both, of course, have pitted. Well, everybody's pitted now, although apart from Pani, we still don't believe he's pitted at this point. I wonder just when he is going to go in. Those Bridgestones seem to be lasting forever, which may have been why they haven't featured all weekend, because they were getting the car really set up to get an endurance run as far as tyres are concerned for the race. David is actually slipping back minusculely from Villeneuve at this point. And of course, Jack has got the fresher tyres, and David's tyres was beginning to go a little bit off, I suppose, by now. And it's so vital to get onto this straight to get that momentum up as they streak down there.
But clearly, the McLaren has improved over previous races this year. You can see the car in the corner has got much better balance as David Coulthard tries to run down race leader Jacques Villeneuve. We've had 25 laps. This is now the 26th lap, and there finally Olivier Panis, the last car to stop. And it's going to be a 2-stop race. 7.8 seconds, better time than the pit stop looked. But back to David Coulthard, running very strongly indeed for McLaren Mercedes-Benz in second place. In and out time for Pani, that's the important thing, 26.5. We go back to Jean Alesi. This battle that's been going on now, he's got Michael Schumacher behind him. And that looks to me...
Mika Häkkinen in front of him.
It's Mika Häkkinen indeed. So 4th, 5th and 6th place battles now getting very tight into the Worth corner. Easy to overdrive. Alesi much more restrained there than we've seen him in other times. Up through Kampsa, this very quick right-hand corner, down into one of the 2 true overtaking parts of the circuit, into Leclerc.
I think you just have to look at it, you know, oh, it's Häkkinen again, he's getting this last lap corner, he got smoke pouring off his tyres, and Lacey isn't really capitalising on it because Mika must be losing time in a situation like that. Remember, he's shifting gears with his hands on the wheel, little flick of the switch, and down he goes, down a gear, down 2 gears, in this case up a gear, accelerating up, backing down a bit, back down 2 gears, accelerates out, and down the main straight again. But he's really got to get down here to get that slipstream, use the air, use the speed of the car in front. You can see him catching up Häkkinen, but of course not enough. We know Häkkinen's pulling 316, so he's about 2 miles an hour slower, but he does catch him under braking as he comes into the first of the Elf turns.
Well, these 2 cars are pretty evenly matched all around the circuit, and Alesi clearly managed to claw a bit of ground between himself. Watch Alesi, looks to look down the inside into
oh, very good.
Heinz-Harald Frenson's second stop. Great opportunity passing into Repsol corner. Alesi and Häkkinen look like they're going to have a battle. So there is.
He's got him, and the Ferrari went by Häkkinen as well.
Mika Häkkinen 2 spots lost in that Repsol corner, and we were watching Frenson in the pit stop for the second time. So this battle for fourth place has turned upside down. It's Alesi now in fourth, Michael Schumacher fifth, Mika Häkkinen down to sixth place, and that will be a big disappointment to the Finn.
Well, of course, obviously what happened is poor old Mika, he gets sort of, oh, here we go, we're going to see it at last. He obviously gets pushed off line there, right off line. He can't get the grip outside, very, very loose out there. And of course, Schumacher, who goes for anything he can, he goes through at the same time as Alesi. Now, it'll be interesting to see what Schumacher can do about Alesi. Remember, they're in third and fourth place, Mika in fifth.
Mika Häkkinen is into the pits. He's decided, I've had enough of this. He dived in that last minute into the pit lane. I think there's as much racing this afternoon here in the pits. The team's under pressure. McLaren servicing Mika Häkkinen for the second time this afternoon. Just watch the clock on the right of screen, 5.06. So problem. What is it, Mika Häkkinen? Big 10.5 seconds. That was not in the script, McLaren. They will try and find out what went wrong for the Finn.
It looked like they looked like they actually had the fuel line still left in the side of the car, actually, John. It looked like that's where they were fiddling. Maybe couldn't get it off.
And well, that right side, just sometimes the nut, you don't get it square onto the hub. So this battle now between Alesi and Michael Schumacher continues, and we'll give you the result of it. It may well be the same, as we are going to take a quick break. Join us back here in Barcelona in a minute.
It's very apparent at this point, John, that obviously nobody's on a one-stop strategy. Is certainly something we didn't anticipate anyway, but one did wonder with Pani there whether that's what they were going to do. Of course, now he's back down to his rightful place, but of course some people have still got that extra stop to make, and it'll be interesting to see why it pans out after that. There, look at that bump as Villeneuve comes out on the exit of that Worth curve. Really is quite a sharp bump. I mean, if we can see it, it's pretty violent in the car. Oh, they're changing the nose on Trulli's car. Didn't know whether
there's Jarno Trulli in the pits having a new nose fitted now. I wonder whether that was just simply a problem of handling. He just wanted to have a different nose setup, or was there damage to that nose? Well, Jacques Villeneuve still leads. Jean Alesi is still in second place. David Coulthard reads on the Tag Heuer computer to be in third place. Then Olivier Panis and Giancarlo Fisichella. Well, all this will change in the course of the next laps as everything begins to settle down. That flurry of pit stops around lap 28 to 31 was quite intense indeed, and it really jumbles up the field. But the key play to me, Derek, has been that pit stop. David Coulthard, the McLaren Mercedes-Benz team. I've just got a feeling that they're going to try something that may well see them gain advantage. We know that the two-stop strategy and three-stop in terms of lap time or race distance time is identical. It just comes down to whether you can get through the traffic or whether in the course of racing you actually are benefiting from doing more or one less. Johnny Herbert out of the pits.
Good
6 seconds. Good job from the Sauber boys. The Swiss team certainly seem to be able to get the pit stops working well these years.
Interesting to note that the drivers battling for fourth place, in fact, have got to finish at least in second place to topple Eddie Irvine from his position in there. So Eddie's having a pretty tough time, fairly well down the field, but he hasn't got any fear at the moment that he's going to be knocked out of his third place in the title chase, although it's very early days in the race, really, and certainly extremely early days in the championship.
Well, one thing is clear, that if David Coulthard finishes in third place, and I think that he's probably going to get closer to second, that will, if he finishes second, that will put him 2 points clear ahead of Irvine, assuming Irvine doesn't pick up any points this afternoon. And that sort of gaggle of four drivers from fourth place on 10 points will begin to dissipate. Michael Schumacher, of course, running down presently in fourth place. He would get 3 points, that would give him 27. But should Villeneuve go on and win, those 10 points would put him back into a clear lead by 3 points from the German driver. There's the positions. Villeneuve, Alesi, Coulthard, 2 seconds between Alesi and Coulthard. Panis is fourth. Come on, let's see who's fifth and sixth. We're going to have to take a little commercial break. Come back, we'll bring you up to speed. Michael Schumacher second. Welcome back to Spain. Jacques Villeneuve still leads this Grand Prix. Jean Alesi in second place. David Coulthard in third. In the battle for second place. Well, that's Mika Häkkinen. In fact, there's a battle going on with Johnny Herbert, and I think that in fact Mika Häkkinen may just have taken that sixth place away. David Coulthard third, Olivier Panis fourth, Michael Schumacher not second as I suggested, but in fact in fifth place. And looks like Mika Häkkinen now up into 6th. So race positions literally being changed as drivers come to the end of one run or just go back out with fresh fuel, fresh tyres on another one.
They must be as confused as we are, John. It certainly isn't an easy way to talk about a race when they half of them have pit stop, the others haven't. Very, very confusing indeed. But there's no doubt about it, Villeneuve is in front. And as I said just now, he's got to be so smooth, drive that car absolutely perfectly on the perfect line. Don't scrub off too much rubber. He's got to make these tyres last so that when he has to use it, he really can.
Well, just looking at Jean Alesi's, he's looking to find a way to get past the Tyrrell. You could see David Coulthard coming into sight at the very top of our picture. So time is being lost here for the Frenchman, but gets past cleanly down into the Seat corner on these very long constant radius. The corner drops away. The tendency of the car, it wants to fall away with the racetrack. Keeping the car tucked in here as they go through the Seat corner, then drop downhill, up the gears and hard on the brakes into the very critical Worth corner. Very important. There is the critical part on the exit. But he's not be too wide too early.
But he's very clean indeed through there. Right now, of course, we're riding with Alesi, but remember, the poor guy's been under so much pressure. He's a very emotional character, and he said at one point he was so fed up with the team, he even hated the colour of the car. So the guy really has had a gutful this season. And we've heard, you know, oh, bit of opposite lock as he controls it there, gets it back under control, sliding, kicking out. But no way to race, of course, when you've got a lot of pressure on your shoulders. Let's just listen a minute.
Well, Derek, we're sitting here in the commentary booth. I don't know how much you want to be in one of these Grand Prix cars, but it does get my old blood boiling. When you hear Jean Alesi's little size 7 feet dance on the throttle pedal. No clutch pedal, of course. It's all done by electro-hydraulic systems, clutch and gear change affected by that. As Michael Schumacher, some 7 seconds away from 4th place, Olivier Panis has elevated himself by that 2-stop strategy. Michael Schumacher clearly on a 3-stopper. But of course, as we are now at half distance, this is a 64-lap race. Remember, after that restart, let's look at what happens to Mika Häkkinen there. Oh, and that is a tyre. That's very, very unusual. Mika Salo. Now that...
But did you see his front right, John? That had blisters. It looked like it had blisters on his right front as well. His left rear totally gone. The guy, fortunately, finds the sand. Very lucky to find that there. In the old days, that would have been a nasty bit of concrete wall.
Well, it's very unusual to see a tyre. I mean, I would have thought maybe that's the result of a tyre deflating, to see the whole carcass of the tyre come off. Sala, of course, only one pit stop. It's Jan Magnussen and Olivier Panis battle not for a position. This is Magnussen having a lap being put on him by the 4th place. Olivier Panis just ahead of him, David Coulthard. So Jean Alesi, David Coulthard, Olivier Panis again being drawn closer to one another as this race progresses towards the 3/4 distance.
Of course, that is the left rear that went on that Tyrrell, and of course that is the tyre that they're getting a lot of wear with. I know it's the left front as well, but of course just depends. If you have understeer, it's the left front. If you have oversteer, it's the left rear. And it could well be that that was the problem with that car. Let's just hope Frenzen's having a problem with his left rear. Let's hope he doesn't get a similar situation. But Panis is really closing up on Coulthard, really coming on him very hard. Looks like it's the end of the race for Barrichello. That's very sad. Remember, he had a wonderful, wonderful run in Monaco, a great 2nd place in the rain, but somehow the pressure on this new Tyrrell, on this new Stewart team this season is very, very hard when it comes to the mechanical side of things, and I guess it's an engine or a gearbox, something in that area.
Well, after all the emotion and the glory of a great performance in Monte Carlo from the Stewart Ford team and Barrichello, this weekend they've come down to earth with a bang because they've had probably the worst weekend so far of their very brief career. As we reflect now, David Coulthard getting a lot of heat from a rather racy Olivier Panis. We've seen Olivier go to sleep in some Grand Prix this year. The Frenchman is certainly very, very alive indeed. And David Coulthard, his car moving around a little bit as they come through the Banque de Sabadell corners, these final 3 corners. And David Coulthard, to me, is beginning to struggle for grip as the pressure from the Frenchman. That Honda engine begins to tell. Comes onto the straight quicker than Coulthard. Watch for the pass, Derek. Talk us through this.
Well, as we come down, we're just going to see whether Pani does pull out. He's slipstreaming. Look, right up, snaps out down the inside. But has he got enough speed to go by? Do you know? Yes, he has. David backs off. What a gentleman. Not what I expected of him. He backed off to let him go. Now, just remember, Pani has one more stop to make. David has by rights another stop to make, but he's going slowly, John. He's really
David,
back to Coulthard may well have a major problem. He backed right out of it. Whatever the strategy is, I think he's got a problem.
Derek, that is the strategy. That is a problem. The Scot, we can't see anything obviously wrong here, but Panis was able to pull out and pass what has been the quickest car down the straight. So something has gone wrong for the Scotsman. Clearly, as he came out of this, the elf curves into the very long there. Frentzen,
he's having a long stop.
What a race Frentzen is having. Disappointment beyond belief, not just for the Williams team, but for the winner in Imola. But this is the man now that a lot of the focus of the Grand Prix is going to focus upon. So David Coulthard down to third place. We believe Pitwood bounds as Olivier Panis gets up to third place on merit. We're going to take a commercial break. John. Welcome back to Spain. David Coulthard, who had been running in third place, lost it to Olivier Panis. At the end of that lap, dived into the pits and his tyres were trashed. So all that philosophy that Derek Bell and John Watson were discussing about whether McLaren are going to do something very clever and tricky, well, they may have tried it, but it certainly didn't work. A lazy second, Panis third. You saw the gaps on screen. And I do think, Derek, that Bridgestone tyre, as we now get into the second part of this afternoon's Grand Prix, which is a more durable tyre, not as quick in a single lap as the Goodyear is, with here David Coulthard returning to the race. So DC back in sixth place. Just listen as he goes round the Renault curve. Verstappen in the pits in the second Tyrrell, so no troubles for the Dutchman this afternoon. His teammate Nico Salo had that tyre so come off the rim as he came down at the end of the straight. But DC, David Coulthard, look at the understeer. That's the bane of a Grand Prix car on any circuit. And then Catalonia, Barcelona, it's the worst track. If you get understeer, it'll kill you.
Interesting here, John, the first three cars, Villeneuve, Alesi and Pani have all only stopped once so far. Schumacher, of course, in fourth place, 4.5 seconds behind Pani. He's in fact stopped twice, so it'll be interesting to see just what happens when this next few laps roll out. Morbidelli obviously got a minor problem, if not a major problem, in the pits. He's got it. It's okay. But the wheels were spinning when it was in fact on a jack, which didn't seem quite right to me as they were finished their refueling. John.
I just wonder, is there a clutch problem for Morbidelli? Yeah. And by letting the wheels spin, but if you're going to do that, you're going to drop the car off, you've got to do it with a lot more reps. Jacques Villeneuve flashes across the line. An interesting statistic: Villeneuve, Alesi, Panis, that is the top three. And there we see Morbidelli leave the pit lane. Those top three runners have only made one stop this afternoon.
I just told you that, John.
Didn't hear you, Derek. I didn't hear you.
Too busy
I'm
thinking,
so deep in this race. I'm in that car. I'm in Alesi's car. I'm in Panis's car. Pedro Diniz, well, I'm not in his car this afternoon. He's having a bad day. I only want to be with a winner.
But they should be coming in fairly shortly, John, despite our little bit of humour there. These top three cars should be coming at any time at all. Villeneuve using a little bit more of a track than he was. But how galling it must have been for Frentzen to have actually have Jacques Villeneuve lapping him just now. That can't be doing him good for his future at Williams. He's had such a topsy-turvy season. He's had victories, he's had pole positions, but the poor guy, he has some really miserable races as well. I know he's shredding tyres, but there must be a reason for it. And of course we know it's not just a matter of driving these days, you've got to be good at setting up your car. And this is something that maybe Frentzen hasn't quite got to grips with yet.
Well, we had a little rumour column in our preview to this Grand Prix this afternoon. I'm not convinced that Heinz Hauer Frentzen, in spite of winning one Grand Prix, will have done enough in this first half of the year to convince Williams that they should keep him for the second half. But what happens to Villeneuve in the future? Well, that's going to be really the priority for the Williams team. He is under contract, in fact, for 1998 with Williams, but one of the clauses in the contract, Derek, states that Williams must have a factory or a works engine. Now, next year we know that Williams are going to have the Megachrome engine. That is not a factory engine. It is being prepared, developed by an outside company. That may allow them a chance to do something different.
Quite a good pit stop there from Pani. That's going to alter the texture of the situation. Schumacher will move ahead into third place, ahead of him, of course, but Michael could well have another pit stop to make. You never know. Schumacher might only just be going to go through to the end on the fuel he's got, but he did have a 6-second stop, Schumacher, just now, so it's highly unlikely, really, that he will run through to the end of the race on that setup. But we've got Alesi and, of course, Villeneuve both to go in on their final stop. Hakkinen having a pretty reasonable stop there, not outstanding, 7.7 seconds. But he's not having the greatest of races, having shone so well in qualifying, but he's still strong, and it's showing the Mercedes engine has got that reliability, and Villeneuve laps into the pit lane.
Jacques Villeneuve in for his second and last entry into the pit lane, certainly in a voluntary form. So the Williams team bring the race leader in, comes to a stop. This is lap 35, 36 for the race leader. He ought to keep the lead. Good stop, 8 seconds. We look at Jarno Trulli in for the second time this afternoon.
It'll be quite difficult.
Italian driver gets out of the pits.
I think it's quite difficult for him to keep that lead. Alesi was only 14 seconds behind him. So I think he might have had difficulty in retaining that lead, but we'll see in just a second. Now we're going to see just how well Michael Schumacher can work his way through this field, having had the other guys in front make their pit stops. He has yet, of course, one more to make, unless he's being very conservative. He's in first place because obviously Alesi must have pitted, and we didn't catch that one. So Michael's in the lead for the first, the first time this race, but we've just got to see just how well he can retain it and just how quick Villeneuve is going to be in catching and Alesi and Panis, and just whether Michael can really capitalise for a few laps, make up Wu. Bit of opposite lot there as he goes through the Worth curve, but he's really got to get some quick laps in while he's in front, so that when he goes into the pits, he hasn't got such a gap between him and the others.
And I think Schumacher really is going to struggle to do that. There's traffic ahead of him. 2 cars. Can he get through cleanly? He's got Gianni Morbidelli, we think it is. Could be Johnny Herbert. It's difficult to tell at the rear of that car.
Look, he's losing so much time.
Slower.
He must be so frustrated because Michael loses that momentum, and that's what he needs finally. I think it was Johnny Herbert actually pulls over and lets him through. Dives into the pits for his last pit stop. Slows right down on that line, 55 miles an hour. This is where Michael Schumacher is absolutely superb. Is his in-lap and he's out. Well, not his in-lap and he's in bidding up the pit lane. Quick stop, look at that. Just under, 6 seconds, 6.8 seconds. Not as good as his last stop, but they were still trying to get the fuel in to see him through to the end.
Ferrari back out onto the circuit. Michael Schumacher third, and we believe last stop. If he's going to do any more, well, he's got no chance of picking up points. And there it looks like a Jean Alesi. We think it's difficult to tell. That car flashed past as they came into the Renault corner, onto the Elk corner. Now we're in this very long, taxing right-hand Renault corner. A real tire murdering corner.
Well, that is very
short straight on the brakes, down into Repsol.
That is intriguing. Sorry, John, that is intriguing. In fact, if that is Alesi in front, because Michael was a good, I think, nothing like 9 seconds behind Alesi just before he pitted. So he's made up a lot of time in those closing laps before he went in. And of course, here he's behind, and this really is fourth position now. There's no other stops for these guys until the end of the race, we hope.
Well, we just had a quick glimpse. It's Villeneuve, Olivier Panis, Jean Alesi and Michael Schumacher. That's the top 4. Join us in a moment after this break. Welcome back to Spain, on board yet again with Jean Alesi, but let's have a little look at the retirements. There have been 7 so far this afternoon. Pedro Diniz is the latest. He had a major blow-up, identical to Damon Hill. Shinji Nakano, Damon Hill, Katayama, Mika Salo, Ralph Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello, and of course Pedro Diniz. Those are our 7 retirements. So let's have a little look. So this is where Ralph Schumacher, that was a few laps ago, that very smoky Jordan Peugeot. His race was over. disappointment for the German. He'll have many more days to look forward to. But let's look at the positions. Jacques Villeneuve continues, as he has done all day, to lead this Grand Prix. Olivier Panis a fine second. A battle going on for third place with this man, Jean Alesi, and pointing at the flag marshals to tell those lap cars ahead to get out of my way. Michael Schumacher's on Alesi's gearbox. David Coulthard in 5th. Johnny Herbert rounds out the top 6. Mika Häkkinen 7. Fisichella 8. Heinz-Harald Frentzen up into 9th. He just got past Gerhard Berger in the last lap. And look at the problem that Panis has. Irvine, use your mirrors.
Yeah, but what you haven't put over yet, John, if I may say, because you obviously had certain things to say there, is that Alesi is right up the tailpipe of Pani, and Schumacher's up the pipe of them, and that's 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place. Having one heck of a dice here, but they can't get by Irvine, who's in the red car, the Ferrari you see. Suddenly, Pani steps by, then goes Alesi, and Schumacher's close behind. So now they'll get down. This is a race, remember. There's 8 laps to go for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place. So it's pretty darn exciting by my book. Michael dips down there, and he goes by Irvine. Irvine lets him through. Now it's should be a pretty rather exciting last few laps.
Well, this battle for 2nd place, it was a battle for 3rd and 4th, but due to traffic, but also due to good work by Alesi and Schumacher, they have drawn themselves up to the back of Olivier Panis. And of course, Panis probably a little bit less incisive in getting through traffic. Alesi, mercurial. So is Michael Schumacher. Let's have a look at the problem Alesi is having. Hand out of the cockpit, trying to get the race director to say, tell those guys, or if they don't, bring them in. Penalise them, fine them. Pedro Denis got a 1-race ban suspended for that very thing in Imola. Could Eddie Irvine find himself getting a similar treatment this afternoon?
Pani dips out and overtakes the Tyrrell, laps the Tyrrell there. And of course, that'll just give him that little gap that he needs, because it helps him a bit, because Alesi now has to get by the Tyrrell to keep on tabs with Pani. Pani, of course, has one of the Minardis in front of him, and that is going to be a little bit of a minus as well. But, you know, another lap and it'll all be opened up again.
Just interestingly, Jos Verstappen in that white Tyrrell is running ahead on the road, on Mirren, of teammate to Michael Schumacher, Eddie Irvine. And that, I have to think, Ferrari are not going to be too impressed about in the case of Eddie Irvine. 3 good races, 3 podiums, 1 bad race. That bad race overshadows all the good work. The Italian press will be out for Eddie Irvine's scalp tomorrow, no doubt. But I'm sure there's a good reason. We have to wait maybe and listen to what Irvine will tell us come the next Grand Prix.
Well, Jean Alesi is going to be waving his finger again as he goes by, because obviously Verstappen is really holding him up here. I don't know for how long, but it's pretty, as you say, pretty awful for dear old Eddie Irvine. They're dicing for a lowly place against Verstappen in a Tyrrell. Pretty bad news, but he may well have a major problem, and that's something we don't know. We're just looking at it. Eddie, we know, can really give it all. We saw him nearly win a Grand Prix early this year. So Eddie's got, obviously, a lot of questions to answer when he gets back. Now, of course, Schumacher's now getting stuck with the same dilemma as Alesi had, but Alesi got by. Now Schumacher should get by on this bit of straight. It'd be amazing if he doesn't. It just shows the power of that fresh engine that they've got in the Tyrrell.
But that engine in the back of the Prost, to me, is beginning to show signs of tiredness. There are little puffs of smoke coming from the downshifts. So let's keep an eye on the back of Olivier Panis as he makes his way out of Renault corner under brakes. So look again, see those little wisps that are coming from the right rear. Alesi now a little bit more comfortable. The attentions of Michael Schumacher not quite as intense. And Jos Verstappen, that Tyrrell with the Ford ED5, the revised version of the customer Ford engine, looks very strong indeed. And in fact, Irvine has closed back up, although a lap down, to the back of Michael Schumacher. And it looks to me that Michael Schumacher really is just hanging in there, trying to get the maximum points he can. He's only going to get 3 this afternoon. He's going to lose the lead of this championship, the lead that he gained when he came away from Monte Carlo. Villeneuve scoring 10 points would give him 30 points. 3 points to Michael Schumacher is only going to give him 27. So this battle between these two giants is going to seesaw. And this, remember, is probably the worst racetrack for Schumacher and Ferrari, who are promising further improvements, further modifications for Canada in 3 weeks' time.
I really want to see just how Alesi, if he can actually get out there and deal with Pani once he gets a clear bit of road. But he's been held up by Jarno Trulli, I believe it is at the moment. Here he goes. Yeah, gets by him, so he's now going to clip up. Schumacher still hasn't overtaken Verstappen. and that is pretty miserable going for Michael. But as you say, John, maybe he just knows he cannot overtake Alesi. But of course, I don't believe that's the case. I mean, he's got by him now, but you've always got to be putting pressure on the guy in front. He might make an error. If you're worrying Alesi from behind, he looks in his mirrors occasionally, I'm sure, and he'll see Michael there. If he doesn't see him, he can relax and just worry about the car in front. He's got to worry.
Irvine gets a penalty. 10 seconds for blocking. I thought that might be the case. Confirmation. Race director has said, Eddie Irvine, you didn't use your mirrors soon enough. You went past the point. You've got about 300 yards in which you've got to react and let those lead cars go through. So even more torture for Irvine. 5 laps remaining in this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix. Stay with us as we take a commercial break. Our top 6 are Jacques Villeneuve, Olivier Panis, Jean Alesi, Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert. Welcome back to Spain. Olivier Panis, a man who not only running so strongly in second place, but could easily find himself in third place in the championship. 6 points to the 9 he already has, will give him 15. And with Eddie Irvine having to come into the pits for a 10-second penalty for blocking, Irvine will remain in 4th place. David Coulthard will then separate himself from that bunch of 4 drivers. He'll end up in 5th place and he'll be on 12 points. 3 laps remaining. Olivier Panis, strong race, probably the 2nd best race in his career. Of course, that win last year in Monte Carlo was one and only win, but also for the Prost team with the Bridgestone tyre. Still with that Honda Muga engine, and that engine they're going to give up at the end of this year. They're going to go for Peugeot power. That, of course, will take the team a little bit of time to adapt to. Different engines provide different problems, not just simply installation, but aerodynamic and just how the engine operates. David Coulthard just 2 seconds ahead of Johnny Herbert in that final point-scoring position in 6th place. Well, there are the laps, the relative laps. Look at the speed of Panis, running 1.6 seconds quicker than Villeneuve in the lead, but it's all academic. Jacques Villeneuve did the business in the opening laps of this race, drove superbly, but really I think Derek Villeneuve won this Grand Prix from his qualifying performance on Saturday afternoon and all the work he and his engineers did.
Yeah, an electrifying lap yesterday. Frenzen went out and took like a second off everybody's time, and everybody went, oh my goodness, and you could see Villeneuve looking at the camera thinking, I don't know if we can do this. He goes out, they modified the car, goes out, and just stops 2/10 off Frenzen's time, and it really did demoralise poor old Heinz Harald, and today the race must have demoralised him even further. He's been lapped by his teammate. Schumacher's lapped Eddie Irvine as well. So for teammates, it's pretty bad news for the sort of second drivers in the team, as it were.
Well, we certainly expected to see this from Villeneuve. We didn't expect to see a French-style performance now. Maybe there was a problem we're not aware of.
We didn't expect to see a Panny-type performance either, John. We've been giving poor old Bridgestone a hard time. Nobody qualified higher than 12th place in qualifying, and here he is, been running so strongly throughout the race, and in fact he's probably only about 8 or 9 seconds behind Villeneuve at the finish of the race.
Well, ultimately this has been a story about tyres. In the case of Villeneuve, setting your car up in such a way as you don't hurt the tyre. And in the case of Panis and Bridgestone, well, they had a tyre that was probably a grade or 2 harder than Goodyear's tyres, a more durable tyre. And that tyre that really has brought Panis alive in the second half of this race and contributed to that very, very fine second place. Last lap of 64. Remember, this race was aborted. We had a 65-lap Grand Prix. The race didn't start. Everybody then had to go into another lap, parade lap, so down to 64 racing laps. Olivier Panis still pushing very hard, still closing up to Jacques Villeneuve. But Villeneuve, in this last lap of the race, all he has to do is just bring the car back. There is no pressure on him. He knows the gap. He will be given information by the team to precisely where Panis was as they crossed the start-finish line. And a driver of the quality of Villeneuve and the experience knows that now all I've got to do is just literally count down. Watch for Panis coming in the back of the screen, but he's not even in sight. So there's clearly more than 8 or so seconds between Villeneuve and Olivier Panis. John Alesi still 3rd, Michael Schumacher 4th, David Coulthard 5th, and Johnny Herbert rounds out the points in 6th place.
Berger not having a good time at all back there, is he, John? But I wonder what went wrong with his car today. I'd like to know what was wrong with Häkkinen's car. He looked so promising in qualifying. He seemed very confident, very up prior to the race. but of course little technical things go wrong with the car, and of course they just can't get the true performance. Here he comes, last corner.
Jacques Villeneuve comes across the start-finish line, wins yet again this year, back onto the winner's podium, 7th career win for the Canadian.
Brilliant, and 350th victory for Goodyear tyres. Do you realise that? Outstanding.
99th Grand Prix career win for the Williams team. Olivier Panis is second, Jean Alesi. We wait for him to come across the line. Michael Schumacher comes across in 4th place, but more importantly for Villeneuve, back into the lead of the championship on 30 points from Michael Schumacher on 27. Olivier Panis, he's on 15. Eddie Irvine down to 4th place on 14. And David Coulthard comes up into 5th place on 12 points. Congratulations in the Williams pits. We're going to take a commercial break. Join us back live in Spain and see the winners spray their bullet champagne for the 2nd time this year. Well, a delighted Dickie Stanford, team manager of Williams Grand Prix Engineering, accepting the congratulations. Jacques Villeneuve wins, Panis second, Alesi third. Michael Schumacher, Herbert and Coulthard round out the top 6. Hakkinen, Frentzen, Fisichella, Berger, Verstappen, Irvine. And then the final runners, Jan Magnussen, Morbidelli, Jarno Trulli. Well, a truly delighted Jacques Villeneuve. Every time he finishes, he wins. Derek, a masterful performance from a young man. 7 wins.
I thought it was very intelligent drive, John, as well as anything else. The super drive from Pani, he must be very delighted. And of course, Alesi more delighted than anybody. First time on the podium this year. Great result for him after a very, very unsettling season. Lots of bad feeling about him. There's nothing worse than seeing a driver being demoralised by the press. Great to see him up there.
Jacques Villeneuve wins this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix, and 7 out of 22 wins. That's a pretty high strike rate, Derek, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely remarkable. And of course, great for Goodyear as well, you know, 350 victories for them. But it was a super drive, and after the disappointment of Monaco, and of course, as I said just now, to see the other 2 up there was great. What a great turnaround, though, within the teams, with all the other drivers really floundering in this race, the second drivers in the teams.
Well, it certainly looks as if it's becoming a somewhat unpredictable Grand Prix season in certain respects. Not so much when we're with Villeneuve, but in terms of who's going to fill the other 2 podium spots. So let's have a look at the drivers' points. Villeneuve regains the lead on 30, 3 ahead of Schumacher in second. Panis, the big winner today, up to 3rd place on 15. Irvine remains 4th on 14. Coulthard 5th on 11. Let's look at the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari still in the lead, but by 1 point from Williams in 2nd. McLaren 3rd on 21. Benetton 4th on 17. Prost up to 5th on strong 15 points. Jordan in 6th, still remaining on 8 points. So the champagne spray once again begins, and in a second all 3 are going to go into the press room for the unilateral press conference and hear whether that wind really did affect what happened to these 3 guys today. Stay with us, we're back in a minute. Welcome back with glorious overview shots of the circuit to Catalonia, but let's go and listen to the press conference with Villeneuve, Alesi and Penis.
Well, Jacques, congratulations on your third victory of the season. This must be particularly pleasing considering the last two races.
Yeah, it's very pleasing because with the whole Team Williams-Renault, we had worked really hard since the beginning of the season. We've had some good results, but with the speed we had, there's a lot of races that we threw away. And after the stupidity of Monaco, it's good to win a race. We did a lot of testing here all the winter. We spent it here, and the car didn't feel as good as in the winter. The tires were different, and in the middle of the race, when the heat picked up, then it was very difficult. But being in the front and having Michael second, blocking everybody else, gave us a good help today.
Did your pit stop strategy of doing 2 stops rather than 3, was that planned?
Yeah, we were planning on 2. We knew it was risky on the tires, but we did 3 once this year, and usually there's more chances of something going wrong when you do 3.
Were you worried towards the end of the race because Olivier seemed to be catching up on you?
No, because we had a big gap, and I knew that there was no point in pushing because the tires are on an edge here. And as soon as he went quicker, we could extend, we could keep up. So I wasn't really afraid, just in case we had some traffic or a tire problem. And you know, he did a great race because he didn't start from the front and he finished second. So that was pretty impressive.
Jacques, well done. Olivier, you qualified 12th, so to be here second today must be particularly pleasing for you.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy because to qualify is very, very difficult for me because the tire is too hard, but I'm sure for the race maybe it's very good result. I would like to make the point. And the 2-stop strategy is very good for me because the wear the tires after the warm-up is fantastic. It's no blist, everything is okay. I'm very happy for the team because he make very, very good job, very strong job this race.
Are you expecting improvement in your qualifying performance, especially from the tires?
Yeah, his 2 solutions. He's quick in qualify is very difficult for the race. The tires improve every time. And this tire for the race is fantastic, but for the qualifying is very difficult. Maybe improve for the qualifying, but the race is very, very important.
You're now third in the championship. What are your feelings towards the rest of the season?
My feeling, I would like to finish the 5th position in championship. The driver, for me, is fantastic race, and for the team also. But it's very, very difficult. But the car is very good. The 2 races ago, a new engine for the French Grand Prix. I think so. It's very good result every season.
Olivier, well done. Jean, this is the first podium appearance for you this season. You must be delighted.
I'm really happy. I tell you, the beginning of the season was a nightmare for us. We were not expecting what's happening, and we worked quite a lot here, and we find finally a good setup for low fuel and high fuel. So to finish on the podium, really, it's great, and it's a lot of oxygen for everybody in the team.
You seem to have a hard race out there. Were you worried about Michael Schumacher towards the end of the race?
No, I was worried about Irvine because I know he's such a very strange driver. So to overtake him was quite tough, much more than keeping Michael behind me.
And what are your feelings towards the rest of the season? Are we going to see Benetton improving from now on?
I'd like to say it's going to be better, but we have to see on the next Grand Prix if really we are on a good way. I'm really believing of my team technical stuff. Probably we will have some very good new things on the new racing coming. I'm quite confident, really.
Jean, well done. Well, Jacques, we now go to Canada, to your home race, and you're leading the championship by 3 points. What are your feelings about that?
Oh, it feels great to go to Canada, leading the championship, definitely. Canada will be a very, very important race for me. There's a lot of home crowd, and you know, last year we had a pretty good race, but we didn't win, so hopefully we can do one better this year.
Thank you. Now, could we have some comments on the race?
Well, the earth didn't move for me in that press conference, but of course the story of the race was all about getting the lead on the first lap. Villeneuve dominated, but behind then it was a race about preservation of tyres and strategy. But that man Villeneuve, well, he just pulled away. Other people like Damon Hill, very sad race, Mika Salo. But in 3 weeks' time, we're going to go to Canada for the Canadian Grand Prix, the Lille Notre Dame in Montreal. Can Villeneuve win in front of his home fans? We will be there, so join us. From John Watson, for Derek Bell and Jonathan Green, thank you for joining us. See you in Canada. This has been a presentation of ESPN Worldwide Leaders in Sports.